There are nights when silence weighs more than any word. Moments when a voice rooted in the deepest part of the mind whispers, "Why can't you just act, flow, be disciplined, without that invisible whip lashing you from within?" In those shadows is where forbidden questions bloom, those we rarely confess aloud, but that each of us carries tattooed in the folds of consciousness. Is discipline a punishment, or could it be a desire, a sweet promise to the restless soul? Discipline, that word so many have worn down until it became dogma. But have you ever asked yourself if you truly desire it? Not from obligation, but as a genuine longing, as one desires air after a long sigh. Imagine the mind not as a prison where willpower drags you by force, but as a temple where discipline is celebrated in secret, as a sacred rite that flourishes without suffering. Ibn Arabi, the mystic who navigated the seas of consciousness, spoke of knowing the essence of each thing before attempting to master it. So how do you conquer discipline if you haven't first explored the dark recesses of desire? Because everything we force from the outside becomes resistance on the inside, and the mind, mischievous and shrewd, finds 1,000 disguises to evade the mandate. Think about those moments of internal struggle. Perhaps the pages of your planner fall one after another, mute witnesses to broken promises. You ask yourself, is it laziness, sabotage, fear? The answers are never linear because the human mind is a labyrinth of mirrors. We promise ourselves 1,000 times that tomorrow everything will be different. That discipline will be born from a heroic, unquestionable act, and that we will be new people, unrecognizable to ourselves. But what if the secret isn't to force change, but to seduce it? What if discipline can emerge from desire, not duty? Here the mystery thickens, like fog at dawn. Because psychology teaches that every forbidden pleasure becomes obsession, and every imposed duty is a gilded cage. The mind resists what it perceives as punishment, but surrenders to what it recognizes as desire. What story do you tell yourself when you dream of being disciplined? Are you the martyr who sacrifices, or the alchemist who transforms routine into pure gold? Imagine for a moment that discipline is not the executioner, but the key that opens a secret door to internal power. A choice, not a condemnation. Observe your mind when it plans and then betrays that plan. There's a sigh disguised as an excuse, the silent promise of instant reward, the warm caress of momentary pleasure. But behind each escape hides a longing for belonging, for meaning. What would happen if you could negotiate with your shadows? If, instead of fighting against them, you listened to them with the solemn patience of a Sufi sage? Ibn Arabi said, "What you seek is seeking you." Isn't discipline a reflection of your greatest desires? Perhaps you don't desire the act itself, but the power, the freedom it promises. Imposed discipline is prison. Desired discipline is silent, nocturnal flight, like that of a bird hidden in the mist. Are you capable of desiring something you've only feared until today? Perhaps the answer lies in reconciling with your motivations, tearing the veil of self-blame and looking straight at the secret threads that move your actions. Discipline doesn't consist of annulling pleasure, but of rewriting the narrative of desire. Because a redirected desire is the most powerful force. You don't fight against yourself, but in favor of your most intimate mission. The mind is expert at negotiating, at seeking shortcuts, at disguising self-sabotage as legitimate needs. But faced with the power of an authentic desire, all resistance dissolves. Imagine that each habit is not a chain, but a dance with your own limits. That each daily ritual is an act of communion with that dark and brilliant part that dwells within you. Psychologists like Carl Jung warned, "What you deny subdues you, what you accept transforms you." What if you accepted laziness not as an enemy, but as an encrypted language of your psyche? Each impulse to postpone, each excuse, is a hidden message in code. You have to learn to translate it. It's not about destroying your desires, but elevating them. Making discipline the object of desire, discovering why feeling disciplined is a pleasure in itself, not torture. Ask yourself, what do you feel when you keep a promise to yourself? Isn't there a flash of secret satisfaction, an echo of power? Neuroscience reveals that our brains are hardwired for comfort and short-term pleasure. Behavioral psychologists call it the hedonic principle. Humans are motivated to seek pleasure and avoid pain. This explains why it feels easier to postpone, to procrastinate, to choose the immediate reward over the distant promise. But the science is clear. Delayed gratification is a greater predictor of success than raw talent or intelligence. The classic Stanford marshmallow experiment showed that children who could delay gratification went on to have better academic, social, and professional outcomes. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for decision-making and impulse control, is key to this process. When you practice discipline, you're actively rewiring neural pathways. Each time you choose the harder path, you strengthen the connections that make that behavior easier next time. It's like creating a mental shortcut. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. This is the neuroscience of habit formation, where consistency transforms effortful choices into automatic responses. Begin the journey by entering your own darkness. Observe without judgment the moments when you fall, the times the mind sets subtle traps along the way. Each relapse is a map, each error a path to deeper meaning. Ask uncomfortable questions. What do you really gain by postponing? What does your disorder protect you from? Self-knowledge opens invisible doors. Recognizing the origin of your resistances is the first act of power. You cannot transform what you don't understand. Befriend your excuses, turn them into teachers. Thus, discipline ceases to be the altar of sacrifice and transforms into a banquet of self-discovery. Sometimes the mind desires immediate pleasure because the future is a nebulous threat. Discipline then disguises itself as deprivation. But what if you could associate pleasure with the disciplined act? Not the distant reward, but the immediate satisfaction of choosing your own destiny. Redefine your rituals. Seek pleasure in the small act of advancing, not just in the distant goal. Turn the experience of being disciplined into sensory joy, not flagellation. Change mental scenarios. Instead of visualizing effort as suffering, imagine the peace of your serene mind, the fullness of inhabiting yourself. Neuroscience has shown that rewarding yourself for disciplined behavior releases dopamine, the brain's feel-good neurotransmitter. This feedback loop makes disciplined actions feel rewarding rather than restrictive. Positive reinforcement is a powerful way to make self-discipline more enjoyable, enhancing your commitment over time. Is it possible to love discipline as much as one loves a secret passion? All love is born from mystery and gradual revelation. Don't try to dominate yourself suddenly. Seduce your mind like the most elusive lover. Invite it to a game, to a pact, to a dance of complicities. Feel the power held in the word desire when you unite it with discipline. In that balance, the mind doesn't suffer, but chooses. There's no whip, only fascination. Each day is an offering to self-knowledge, a ritual that reveals new layers of your being. Ibn Arabi emphasized 3 foundations for human stability: faith, confidence, and reason. These principles form the architecture upon which discipline can be constructed without violence. Faith in your capacity to change, confidence in the process, even when results aren't immediate. Reason to understand the patterns that govern your behavior. The Sufi mystic understood that the human soul operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There is the commanding self, which seeks instant gratification, the blaming self, which criticizes and judges, and the peaceful self, which rests in harmony with divine will. Discipline in this framework is not about destroying the lower selves, but about elevating them, transforming their energy into something sacred. Consider how you relate to your own mind. Do you see it as an adversary to be conquered, or as a wild horse to be tamed with patience and understanding? The difference is crucial. When you approach discipline as warfare, every day becomes a battle. When you approach it as partnership, every day becomes a negotiation toward mutual flourishing. The psychology of motivation reveals a fundamental truth. Humans are far more motivated by approach goals than avoidance goals. We move more powerfully toward what we desire than away from what we fear. This is why framing discipline as what I get to do rather than what I have to do creates such a profound shift in experience. Think about the activities you pursue with natural enthusiasm. Perhaps creative work, time with loved ones, or engaging with ideas that fascinate you. Notice how discipline feels effortless in those domains. You don't need willpower to do what you genuinely want to do. The challenge, then, is to cultivate that same quality of wanting in areas where discipline currently feels like drudgery. This cultivation requires deep investigation. You must ask, what do I truly value? Not what society says I should value, not what looks good on paper, but what genuinely matters to my soul. When your disciplined actions align with your deepest values, they cease to feel like sacrifices and begin to feel like expressions of your truest self. Ibn Arabi spoke of the imaginal realm, a space between the physical and the spiritual, where symbols and meanings take on tangible form. In this realm, you can practice discipline before you enact it. You can visualize not just the outcome, but the feeling of being the kind of person for whom discipline is natural. You can rehearse the identity, not just the behavior. Modern psychology calls this mental rehearsal or visualization, and research confirms its power. Athletes use it to improve performance. Therapists use it to help clients overcome phobias. You can use it to rewire your relationship with discipline. See yourself making the disciplined choice. Feel the satisfaction. Notice the respect you have for yourself in that moment. Make it vivid, make it real. But visualization alone is not enough. The mystic path requires action, requires testing the insights gained in meditation against the rough edges of reality. You must experiment with small acts of discipline, observing carefully how your mind responds. Does resistance arise? Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts accompany it? This somatic awareness is crucial. The body stores patterns of tension and release, and these patterns influence behavior far more than conscious reasoning. When you notice the physical sensation of resistance, the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your limbs, you can work with it directly. Breathe into it. Relax around it. Sometimes the resistance dissolves simply from being acknowledged. Other times the resistance carries information. Perhaps you're pushing too hard, demanding too much change too quickly. The psyche has its own pace of transformation, and forcing it beyond its current capacity creates backlash. This is why gradual, incremental approaches to building discipline are often more successful than dramatic overhauls. Start with something so small, it seems almost ridiculous. If you want to become someone who exercises daily, begin with putting on your workout clothes. If you want to write regularly, begin with opening your notebook. The action itself matters less than the proof you're giving yourself. I am someone who keeps commitments. Each kept commitment, no matter how small, builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, your belief in your capacity to achieve goals. Self-efficacy is the foundation of sustainable discipline. Without it, you're constantly fighting against an internal voice that says, "You can't do this, you never follow through, why even try?" But as you accumulate evidence of your reliability to yourself, that voice weakens. A new voice emerges. I'm the kind of person who does what they say they'll do. This identity shift is far more powerful than any amount of willpower or motivation. Identity-based discipline doesn't require constant effort because you're simply being who you are. Ibn Arabi taught that true knowledge comes from direct experience, not from intellectual understanding alone. You cannot think your way into loving discipline. You must experience the rewards firsthand. You must feel the quiet pride of honoring your word. You must notice the increased energy that comes from living in alignment with your intentions. You must taste the freedom that discipline paradoxically creates. This freedom is perhaps the greatest gift of discipline, yet it's often overlooked. We tend to think of discipline and freedom as opposites, discipline as constraint, freedom as doing whatever we want. But anyone who has lived without discipline knows the prison of scattered energy, of potential forever unrealized, of vague dissatisfaction that comes from being unable to manifest what matters most. True freedom requires structure. The musician who has disciplined themselves to practice scales can improvise with fluidity. The writer who maintains a daily practice can express complex ideas with clarity. The meditator who sits regularly can access states of consciousness unavailable to the undisciplined mind. Discipline creates the container within which genuine spontaneity can emerge. Think of it this way: a river without banks is a swamp. The banks, the discipline, allow the water to flow with power and direction. Similarly, disciplined routines and habits create channels through which your life force can move effectively toward meaningful goals. But what makes a goal meaningful? This is where many approaches to discipline fail. They assume you already know what you should be disciplined toward. They offer systems and strategies without first helping you clarify why any of it matters. Ibn Arabi would say, you must first know yourself, your essence, your purpose, your unique place in the cosmic order. In psychological terms, this is about connecting with intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic rewards. Intrinsic motivation comes from within, the inherent satisfaction of the activity itself, the alignment with your values, the expression of your authentic self. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside, money, praise, avoiding punishment. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation creates more sustainable behavior change. So how do you tap into intrinsic motivation? You must slow down enough to listen to the quiet voice beneath the noise of should and social conditioning. You must ask, if I weren't trying to impress anyone, what would I want to create with my life? If I weren't afraid of failure, what would I attempt? If I had only a year to live, how would I spend my time? These questions cut through superficial goals to reveal what truly matters to you. And when discipline serves what truly matters, it transforms from burden to gift. You're no longer forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. You're empowering yourself to do things you deeply want, but that require sustained effort. This reframe is everything. Discipline is not about self-denial. It's about self-actualization. It's not about becoming someone other than who you are. It's about becoming more fully who you already are, beneath the layers of conditioning and distraction. Consider the times when you've been most disciplined in your life. What characterized those periods? Likely you had clarity of purpose. You cared deeply about what you were doing. The effort didn't feel like sacrifice, but like investment in something precious. How can you recreate those conditions now? One powerful practice is to connect each disciplined action to your larger vision. Before you engage in a difficult task, pause and ask, how does this serve what I care about most? Make the connection explicit. I'm waking up early because I value having quiet time for reflection. I'm declining this invitation because I'm committed to my creative work. I'm exercising because I want to have energy for the activities that bring me joy. When the connection is clear, discipline feels like alignment rather than restriction. You're saying yes to what matters by saying no to what doesn't. This is the essence of what Ibn Arabi called spiritual discernment, the capacity to distinguish what brings you closer to your true nature from what pulls you away. But discernment requires ongoing practice. The mind is skilled at rationalization, at making distractions seem important, at creating urgent crises that conveniently prevent us from doing what's genuinely significant. You must develop what might be called bullshit detection for your own excuses. This doesn't mean being harsh with yourself. In fact, self-compassion is crucial for sustainable discipline. When you inevitably stumble, and you will, beating yourself up only creates additional suffering and makes it harder to get back on track. Instead, investigate with curiosity. What happened? What can I learn? What do I need to adjust? Treat yourself as you would a good friend who's trying to change a difficult pattern. You'd offer encouragement, you'd help them understand obstacles, you'd celebrate small victories. Do the same for yourself. This compassionate approach actually creates more reliable discipline than harsh self-criticism ever could. The Sufi path emphasizes the importance of community and accountability. While the internal work is ultimately yours alone, having witnesses to your journey provides crucial support. Who knows about your commitments? Who can you check in with when motivation wanes? Who celebrates your progress? This doesn't mean outsourcing your discipline to others, but rather creating an ecosystem that supports your growth. Just as a plant grows better in fertile soil with adequate water and sunlight, you flourish when your environment supports your aspirations. Design your life with this in mind. Remove unnecessary temptations. Create friction around behaviors you want to reduce. Make desired behaviors as easy as possible. The concept of choice architecture from behavioral economics is relevant here. The easier you make the disciplined choice, the more likely you are to follow through. Keep your workout clothes next to your bed. Put your phone in another room when you need to focus. Schedule your most important work for when your energy is highest. These environmental designs work with human psychology rather than against it. You're not relying solely on willpower, which is a finite resource. You're shaping the landscape so that the path of least resistance leads where you actually want to go. Yet even with optimal conditions, there will be days when discipline feels impossible. On those days, Ibn Arabi would remind you of the principle of states versus stations. States are temporary emotional and psychological conditions that come and go. Stations are stable levels of spiritual development. Don't mistake a temporary state of low motivation for a permanent station of being undisciplined. In practical terms, bad days don't define you. One missed workout doesn't make you lazy. One afternoon of procrastination doesn't mean you've failed. These are weather systems passing through, not your fundamental nature. Maintain perspective. Return to your practice without drama. This requires faith, not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the process, faith in your capacity for change, faith that consistent small actions accumulate into significant transformation. Such faith is not blind optimism, but grounded in observation. You've changed before, you've overcome challenges, you've developed capacities you once lacked. You can do so again. The journey toward making your mind desire discipline is exactly that. A journey, not a destination. There is no finish line where you finally arrive at perfect self-discipline and never struggle again. Instead, you're cultivating an ongoing relationship with yourself, learning to work with your psychology rather than against it, discovering what Ibn Arabi called the secret of destiny, the recognition that who you're becoming is as important as what you're achieving. In this light, every moment of discipline becomes sacred, not because you're performing some heroic act of willpower, but because you're honoring the deeper truth of who you are and who you're called to become. You're listening to the whisper of your potential and responding with action. You're building the bridge between your current reality and your possible future, one careful step at a time. This is why discipline without suffering is possible, because when discipline serves love of your purpose, your values, your highest vision for yourself, it transforms from obligation to devotion. You're no longer forcing yourself to do what you hate. You're allowing yourself to do what matters despite the obstacles. The obstacles remain, of course. The resistance doesn't magically disappear, but your relationship to it shifts. Instead of seeing resistance as proof that you're on the wrong path, you recognize it as a natural part of any meaningful endeavor. The presence of difficulty doesn't mean stop. It often means you're heading in the right direction. Ibn Arabi spoke of the breath of the merciful, the divine compassion that sustains all existence moment by moment. You can tap into this quality in your own life, a merciful breath toward yourself when things are hard, a remembrance that your worth is not determined by your productivity, a recognition that you're doing your best with the awareness and resources you currently have. From this place of self-compassion, discipline becomes lighter. You're not wielding it like a weapon against your inadequacies, but offering it like a gift to your potential. Each disciplined choice is a vote of confidence in your future self, a message that says, you matter. What you're creating matters. I'm willing to do hard things because you're worth it. And perhaps this is the ultimate secret. Discipline becomes desirable when you understand it as an act of self-love rather than self-punishment. When you grasp that taking care of your commitments is taking care of yourself. When you realize that following through on your word to yourself builds the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with your own soul. Tonight, before you sleep, consider this. What would change if you saw discipline not as your enemy, but as your ally in creating the life you're meant to live? What would shift if you approached your habits and routines with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment? What becomes possible when discipline transforms from suffering into sacred practice? These questions have no single answer. They're invitations to ongoing exploration, to the beautiful, messy work of becoming more fully yourself. Ibn Arabi reminds us that the path of knowledge is infinite. There is always deeper to go, more to discover, new layers of understanding to unearth. May your discipline be born from desire, not duty. May your commitment serve your deepest values, not your smallest fears. May you discover that the power to shape your life has been within you all along. waiting patiently for you to stop fighting yourself and start dancing with your own magnificent potential.